Right. I've heard
Um,
that. Yeah.
yeah. So I recommend if you want to buy a probiotic supplement, buy a really well-cultured dairy product like BioK, or a well-cultured vegan dairy product,
Mm-hmm.
because they tend to digest better. They survive better. A dairy actually carries the probiotics through the digestive system, um, and helps it survive because of the calcium counterbalancing
Oh.
our stomach acid. However, I think making your own fermented foods is the best way to get probiotics, even if it's sourdough starter. I mean, when you cook the bread, there's no probiotics left in the bread, but making sourdough in your home introduces the wild yeasts and bacteria in the sourdough starter into the air of your home, and so you're getting that probiotic all over your skin, in your
Wow.
lungs. It's
Wow. That's like an atomizer.
yeah, it's and you may find that your mold issues disappear as well as they outcompete.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. And then you get to eat the bread at
yeah,
once it's cooked. That's amazing. That's
yeah.
absolutely amazing. Now, is there a recipe on your site for the sourdough?
Oh, yes.
Oh, good. Oh, good. So we can go on there because this is all making me very hungry. Um, um, so, how has your personal health and your family's health changed since following the microbiome diet and by incorporating fermented foods into your everyday eating? Has everything, all those issues that you were dealing with, had they disappeared?
My children are still my daughter's still gluten free, but she can eat eggs and all the rest of the food. My son seems to be quite fine with his food intolerances, and his eczema is cleared right up. So, yeah, that's really helped them. And interestingly, it helped me a lot too. And I didn't expect that. I have to say I have more energy and just more vitality now than I had even like 10 years ago. And
Mhm.
it
Oh,
sounds
great.
cliche, but honestly, I feel like I'm healthier now than I was, 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I kind of was like, I was fine. But I got tired and felt a bit draggy sometimes. And it was,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. So and how about your husband?
I don't know. I don't know if he would agree or not. He's always been very energetic, so
Right. Oh, he would know the difference anyway, right?
exactly.
Um, so, are there any tips you can pass along to our listeners who are interested in sort of joining the fermented food revolution? I mean, are there starter kits that you can recommend?
Um, well, I do have I do recommend Cultures for Health, especially in the US. And if you want to find a link to them, they're on my every page. I have it in my sidebar, a link to Cultures for Health. They sell starter kits, so if you want to start experimenting with diverse cultures, they're a real good source. If you want to start simple and not invest in something like that, I recommend sauerkraut. Organic cabbage naturally comes with its own bacterial culture, which is why
Mm.
so many cultures have have cabbage as the basis of their um,
Oh, yeah.
fermenting, like kimchi and sauerkraut, and then South America they have curtido, and yeah, so it naturally self ferments. I guess as a newbie too, it can take a while to get the good wild yeasts in your home. So sourdough and stuff like that can take a while to catch. So I guess it's be a bit patient and expect it to take a month or two to really get a good culture. But once you have a good culture in your home, you can ferment pretty much everything reliably. Like it just
Hmm.
happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, do you feed the fermented foods to do you have any pets? I should ask you,
Yeah.
do you have pets?
Yes, I have two cats. They're just a year old now. Yeah.
And do they partake in fermented foods?
Yeah, not so much anymore, but when they were kittens, we used to give them fermented dairy. So I know pets are lactose intolerant, but we
Right.
make milk kefir, and so the the kefir actually eats the lactose. Um,
Right.
so it becomes less, more digestible for pets. So we did that.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I do have a question about kefir, because there are people out there who do make their own kefir. Um, what is the best? What is the best? And this is coming from somebody who does not make kefir, me. Um, can you use a variety of different uh, things like some people use the cow's milk? Can you use goat?
Kefir, yeah, you can use any kind of dairy milk with it.
Right.
In my extended family, there are people who only have goat milk, and kefir can definitely culture goat milk as well. Yeah.
And was that one thing that you started with at the beginning? Was that one?
It is. My mother-in-law makes kefir and has had grains for, I don't know, she's Russian, so like,
Yes.
they could be eons old.
Oh yeah.
So she gave me kefir pretty early into my fermenting relationship, and we've kept the grains ever since. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. What does your kitchen look like?
To be honest, I live in a tiny townhouse and I have the tiniest kitchen, but I have closets. And so I have miso in one closet, apple cider vinegar in another closet. So I stash my ferments in different locations to try and keep the cultures from cross-contaminating.
Right.
So that's what it looks like.
Wow. Yeah. So there is a real science behind this, isn't there? If you're going to do it yourself.
Yeah. I think pretty much anybody can do it. And once you get doing it, it's kind of like a science and an art. Like, I'm trying to think like bread making or other things that we do. Once you get going with it, it becomes sort of second nature. You just know how, whether it's working out or if it isn't. Yeah. But I will admit, like, if you're starting out, just start small. Like, sauerkraut is really reliable. Making yogurt using store-bought culture is really reliable. So.
Well, what is your personal favorite fermented food that you make for yourself and your family that you enjoy most days?
So we eat like 100% homemade bread.
Oh,
so I guess sourdough.
Wonderful. Yeah.
And well, that's because of the gluten-free issue, and homemade gluten-free bread is so much better.
Yeah.
And we drink kefir like exclusively, like we never drink milk. Mm-hmm. And we eat a lot of yogurt. But I would have to say that, like, if there was something I'm going to go out of my way to make, because those are all sort of part of my routine, it's actually, we do this kimchi that is like a kid-friendly one, so it doesn't have any of the hot peppers, and it's just a bit milder, and my kids love it, and we add it. You can pretty much add it to anything, and it just adds a bunch of flavor, and it's really, really great.
Oh, that sounds very yummy. And of course, I am absolutely starving now that we have been talking about this the whole podcast. So one of the things I did want to ask you was, does the temperature in your home, does that make a difference to fermenting?
Yes and no. Like, all ferments have their favorite temperature. So like sourdough would prefer it a little warmer, and vegetables prefer it a little cooler, but realistically it doesn't matter. If it's a little cool in your house, you let something ferment for longer. If your house is warm, it just ferments a little quicker. But yeah, usually it's good if you have a garage, you can put your vegetables in there because it's cooler, something like that. Yeah.
Do you ever ferment fruit?
Yes. I have a few different fruit recipes on my blog. And fruit self-ferments with wild yeast as well, or you can use it with culture. I often recommend, if you're new, using a culture for fruit, because any yeast or sugary-based cultures will ferment fruit. So like kombucha or kefir, or I really like gingerbug, because unlike kombucha and kefir, you don't actually have to have the culture ahead of time. Just take ginger and grate it with the skin on and add sugar. It naturally ferments, and then you have a culture, like it. I don't want to say sugar-based culture, but like the yeast is fed by the sugar, and then you can ferment like fruit with that because
sounds yummy. Sounds lovely. Emily, we have come to the end of our time together for now, for this podcast. And I want to say thank you so much for joining us today and enlightening us on fermented foods. It has been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And if you would like more information about Emillie, you can visit fermentingforfoodies.com, fermentingforfoodies.com. And she also has an additional blog there. It's called Berries and Barnacles as well, about her life on the West Coast island. Again, many thanks again, Emillie, for being with us today on Yin Yoga Lifestyle.
Thank you for having me.
And please don't forget to visit and subscribe to yinyogalifestyle.com. We have a newsletter, we have a blog, and you can find free yin yoga videos on there, and you can join live online yin yoga classes and receive your first class for free. Let's get you started on your daily yin yoga routine today. It's really easy. Thank you again for joining us on Yin Yoga Lifestyle, adding enlightenment, calm, balance, and creativity to your everyday life. I am your host, Colette Darville. Join us next time to continue our journey of balancing into a state of perfect harmony. Until then, this is Colette Darville, reminding you to inhale, so, and exhale, hum.